The air on Xylos 4 tasted like burnt copper and ancient dust. Kael tightened the seals on his environmental suit. He ignored the whining protest of his internal air filters. Every breath felt like chewing on ground-up ore. The ship, his battered, lucky scavenger, sat nestled in a jagged ravine. Its hull panels shimmered under the twin suns. Kael had landed it quiet like a ghost, but he knew the galactic authorities had marked this planet. They called it Prohibited Zone Zeta-7. They called it Death's Embrace. They especially called it her domain. Kael scoffed at the warnings. He had heard them since he was a kid. "Beware the Blood Mistress of Xylos," the old spacers used to croak. "She drains you dry, leaves you a husk." He always pictured some grotesque monster with dripping fangs. He pictured a horror show from a cheap holofilm. He was here for a specific reason. The rumors said rare chronium crystals laced the deep caverns of Xylos 4. Crystals that could stabilize jump drives. Crystals that could make Kael a rich man. Rich enough to disappear. Rich enough to forget the mistakes that had led him to this forgotten corner of the galaxy. A sharp crack echoed from the canyon walls. Kael froze. His hand went to the laser pistol holstered at his hip. The sound wasn't wind. It was too sharp, too precise. It was like something large had just scraped against the rock face above him. He had been digging near a narrow crevice. His geological scanner had chirped earlier, a faint signal. It promised a vein of chronium just beyond a collapsed rockfall. He had spent the last 2 hours clearing debris. His muscles ached. His visor was fogging slightly. The air outside his suit grew heavy, almost thick. It wasn't the copper smell now. It was something else, something sweet like overripe fruit but with a metallic undertone. His scanner suddenly went wild, not for chronium, for a life form. A massive one right above him. Kael looked up. The suns cast long, distorted shadows. He saw it then. A silhouette, impossibly tall, unfolding from the jagged cliff edge. It moved with a disturbing grace. Its form was slender, too slender like a predator stretched thin. 2 glowing red eyes, impossibly bright, fixed on him. Not like an animal, like something with intelligence. Something that was looking right into his soul. His hand trembled on the pistol. The legends had always started with the eyes. The Blood Mistress. He had dismissed it as superstition. Now his stomach churned. This wasn't a myth, this was real, and it was here, with him. On a planet no one else dared to visit, he heard a low, melodic hum deep in his bones. It was not a sound his suit could filter. It vibrated through the rock, through his very being. The creature descended. It moved like water flowing over the sharp rocks without a sound. Its skin was the color of pale moonlight. Its limbs were long, ending in delicate, almost too long fingers. Its face was strikingly beautiful in a way that was unsettling. High cheekbones, a narrow nose, and those eyes. They pulsed with an inner light, a deep crimson. But there were no fangs, no dripping blood, only an intense, unsettling stillness. It was female. This was the Blood Mistress. She floated down until her feet, which were bare and impossibly long, touched the ground a mere 2 meters from him. She wore simple, flowing robes that seemed to be made of spun shadow. The sweet, metallic scent grew stronger. Kael could feel a strange, tingling sensation spreading through his body. It started in his fingertips. It moved up his arms. It made his head feel light. He wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But he couldn't move. He felt like his limbs were made of lead. He tried to raise his pistol. His arm felt heavy, too heavy to lift. The hum intensified. It was inside his head now. A chorus of whispers, not words, but feelings, loneliness, hunger, ancient power. He realized what was happening. This wasn't a physical attack. She was doing something else, something invisible. He could feel his energy draining, not his blood, his life force, his warmth. It was like being slowly hollowed out. A profound emptiness began to settle over him. He felt his eyelids droop, his vision blurred around the edges. He was going to collapse. He was going to die right here. He was going to become one of the husks. He closed his eyes, bracing for the end. He felt a light touch on his visor, a delicate, long finger. It was surprisingly gentle. The hum softened. The draining sensation stopped. Kael blinked his eyes open. The red eyes were still fixed on him, but now they held something else. Curiosity, and perhaps a flicker of surprise. The beautiful alien woman leaned closer. She tilted her head, she spoke. Her voice was not the humming. It was a soft, sibilant whisper like dry leaves rustling across polished stone. "You are resilient," she said. Her voice carried directly into his mind. It bypassed his suit's comms. It bypassed his ears. It was a thought directly implanted. "Most fall within moments." Kael swallowed. His mouth was dry. He still felt weak, but the immediate threat was gone. He looked at her, really looked. She wasn't grotesque. She was hauntingly beautiful, and clearly she could have killed him, but she hadn't. Why, he managed to croak out a question. What are you?" She stepped back slightly. She regarded him with those intense eyes. "I am Seraphina," she replied. "I am a Nocturne." She paused. A faint smile, almost imperceptible, touched her lips. "And you human are an unexpected distraction." She turned, floating gracefully towards the crevice Kael had been clearing. She glanced at the pile of displaced rock, then she looked back at him. "You seek the glittering stones?" Kael nodded, still a little stunned. "Chronium." She extended a hand. A pulse of crimson light, barely visible, emanated from her palm. The rockfall Kael had struggled with for hours simply disintegrated. It turned into fine dust. The dust settled around them. A small cave entrance, dark and inviting, lay revealed. Inside, faint blue light pulsed. Chronium, a fortune. Seraphina simply watched him. She offered no explanation. She offered no demand, just a simple, silent gesture. He looked at the cleared entrance. He looked at her. The warnings screamed in his memory. Dangerous, monster. But she had helped him. She had shown him something incredible, and she had spared his life. Curiosity warred with fear. Curiosity won. He decided to stay. He decided to learn. Kael spent the next few days with Seraphina. He learned that her feeding was not meant to be fatal. For her, it was a way of connecting, of understanding. She absorbed ambient life energy. Humans, with their vibrant, erratic life forces, were like a strong current. Too much, too fast, could be overwhelming for both parties. He learned her people, the Nocturnes, were not vampires in the human sense. They did not drink blood. They drew on the living essence, the unique electrical impulses of a species. For them, it was like breathing. For others, it was like having a part of yourself gently lifted away. It left you weak, but not dead if done carefully. Seraphina had done it carefully with him. He had been a jolt, a surprise. He had recovered quickly. His human resilience was something she found fascinating. She had never encountered a species quite like humanity, one that pulsed with so much raw, untamed energy, one that recovered from her touch so quickly. He spent his days in the chronium cave, carefully extracting the crystals. The light they gave off was a soft, comforting blue. He found the work meditative. At night, or what passed for night under the shifting light of the twin suns, he spoke with Seraphina. She rarely left the deep shadows of the canyons. She seemed to draw strength from the cool, dark places. She told him stories, not with words, but with images and feelings. Ancient star systems, long-dead civilizations. Her people, the Nocturnes, had once been numerous. They were a nomadic species, drifting from world to world, feeding gently, observing. But then came the fear. The galaxy, when it first encountered the Nocturnes, reacted with terror. They did not understand. They saw only the draining, the weakness. They did not see the subtle exchange. The Galactic Council, formed from dozens of wary species, hunted them. They called it a purification. The Nocturnes were driven to extinction, or so it was thought. Seraphina was the last. She had lived for millennia, hiding, observing, always alone. Her existence was a testament to her species' quiet strength. She rarely fed now. It was too dangerous, too risky. But she confessed, through shared thoughts, that the loneliness was a deeper hunger than any life force drain. Kael found himself opening up to her. He spoke of his own past, of his failed business, of the double-cross that left him penniless and distrustful. He had been a cargo hauler. He had invested everything in a new jump drive, a risky but potentially lucrative venture. His partner, an oily Xylarch named Gorok, had absconded with the profits. Kael had been left with nothing but his ship and a burning resentment. He had seen the galaxy as a place of betrayal. Seraphina listened with an ancient patience. She showed no judgment, only a quiet understanding. Her crimson eyes would shimmer. He found himself looking into them more often, seeing not a monster but a profound sadness. One cycle, as Kael was packing away a particularly large chronium crystal, his ship's proximity alarm blared. It was a piercing, urgent shriek. Kael dropped the crystal. He scrambled out of the cave. "What is it?" Seraphina was already outside, her form a pale silhouette against the darkening sky. Her eyes glowed brighter. "Intruders," she said, her voice a low hum in his mind. "Many, fast." Kael raced to his ship's cockpit. His external scanners painted a chilling picture. 3 sleek military-grade cruisers were descending through the atmosphere. Galactic Council markings, not a simple patrol. This was a hunt, a coordinated strike. "They found us," Kael muttered. His blood ran cold. He had been so careful, so quiet. Seraphina floated beside him, her gaze fixed on the descending ships. "They have been searching for a long time." Her voice was devoid of panic, but a faint tremor of despair touched his thoughts. They knew this planet was a possibility. They just needed a trigger. Kael remembered the faint signal from his comms when he first entered the system. He had thought it was just background radiation. Perhaps it was a tracking beacon. He had been sloppy. He had been so focused on the chronium, on his own escape. Now he had brought the hunter to her. "We have to move," Kael said, pushing down his fear. "They'll glass this valley once they confirm you're here." He knew the Council's tactics. Burn first, ask questions later, especially when it came to threats. Seraphina looked at him. "Where would we go? There is no escape from their reach, not for me." Kael gripped the controls of his ship. "My ship has a cloaking device. It's old, unreliable, but it might work. And I know the asteroid fields in the Xylos system. There are hidden pockets, deep nebulae." He looked at her. "We can buy time. We can escape." Seraphina looked at him with an intensity that made him shiver. "Why do you help me, Kael? You could give me up, you would be rewarded, your freedom would be assured." Kael thought of Gorak, of the betrayal. He thought of the empty feeling he had carried for so long. He thought of Seraphina, lonely and hunted. "Because," he said, meeting her gaze, "no one deserves to be hunted just for existing. And you're not what they say you are." He didn't say the rest. That he felt a connection to her, a strange kinship with this ancient, feared creature. That for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel alone. A burst of laser fire erupted from the sky. The first cruiser was targeting the ravine. Kael slapped the ignition. The lucky scavenger shuddered to life. "Get in!" he yelled. Seraphina moved with impossible speed, slipping into the cramped co-pilot's seat. She folded her long limbs into the small space. Her presence filled the cockpit. The sweet, metallic scent grew stronger. Kael launched the ship. He pulled up sharply, angling the lucky scavenger towards a narrow gap in the cliffs. Laser fire scorched the rock where they had been moments before. He pushed the engines to their limit. The ship screamed in protest. The chase was relentless. Kael weaved through the jagged canyons of Xylos 4. The Council cruisers, faster and better armed, were right on their tail. He activated his old, unreliable cloaking device. The ship shimmered, then became a faint distortion in the visual spectrum. "It's not perfect," Kael gritted out. "They can still track our energy signature." Seraphina sat silently beside him, her crimson eyes fixed on the star map. "They are not using their full power," she observed. "They wish to capture me, not destroy the ship." Kael frowned. "Capture? Why?" Seraphina turned to him, her gaze piercing. "My species is rare. They believe they can control us, perhaps weaponize our abilities, or perhaps they seek to find a cure for what they deem a disease." Kael felt a chill. The Council wasn't just about protection. They were about control. He had heard whispers of their bioengineering divisions, their attempts to harness or eradicate unique species. He pushed the ship higher, breaking atmosphere. The vast blackness of space opened up before them, dotted with distant stars. "Hold on," Kael warned. He plotted a course for the dense asteroid field that orbited Xylos 4. The field was a chaotic swirl of rock and ice, a graveyard for careless pilots. It was also the perfect place to hide. The Council ships followed, their bright engine trails like hungry eyes in the dark. Kael plunged into the asteroid field. He flew by instinct, dodging massive chunks of rock that suddenly loomed out of the darkness. The lucky scavenger groaned. Alarms blared as small asteroids scraped against the hull. Seraphina watched, unmoving. Kael could feel her presence, a calming anchor in the storm of his panic. He could feel her silently augmenting his senses. He was seeing trajectories, feeling vectors before his instruments even registered them. It was subtle. It was as if she was connecting to his very awareness. He was flying better than he ever had before. A sudden thought from Seraphina. The Council ship, the lead one, its right flank is vulnerable. a small tremor in its energy output. Kael instinctively swerved, positioning the lucky scavenger behind a particularly large, rotating asteroid. As the Council cruiser came around, Kael saw it, a faint flicker in its shielding. He fired a quick burst from his ship's only forward cannon. The shots were weak, mostly meant for asteroid clearing, but they hit. The cruiser's shields flared, momentarily dropping on its right side. It didn't do much damage, but it bought them precious seconds. "How did you know that?" Kael asked, dodging another asteroid. "I can feel their intentions," Seraphina replied. "Their fear, their aggression, and their weaknesses," Kael realized. She wasn't just draining life force. She was feeling the emotional and energetic signatures of everything around her. It was a terrifying power, but in her hands it was also a tool for survival. He thought of her loneliness. This ability, which made her so feared, also made her deeply sensitive to the galaxy's vibrations. It must be overwhelming, constantly feeling the fear of others. He found a pocket, a cluster of asteroids so dense, so tightly packed, that it created a gravitational anomaly. It was a known dead zone for most sensors. He brought the lucky scavenger to a dead stop, cutting all power. The ship drifted, silent and dark. Outside, the Council ships whizzed past, their sensors searching. They were broadcasting standard hails, warnings to identify themselves. Kael and Seraphina sat in the darkness, listening. The sounds of the galaxy faded. Only the soft hum of their own breathing remained. Kael became acutely aware of Seraphina's presence beside him. The sweet scent of her, the subtle warmth emanating from her, the quiet strength that filled the small cockpit. The silence stretched. Minutes turned into what felt like hours. Finally, the distant flares of the Council ships faded. They had moved on, likely assuming the lucky scavenger had been crushed or drifted into deeper space. "We are safe for now," Seraphina murmured. Kael let out a long breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "That was too close." He looked at Seraphina in the dim light. "We need a new plan. We can't keep running forever." Seraphina looked out at the stars. "There is a place," she said, her voice softer than Kael had ever heard it. "An old place, a place of my ancestors, deep in the outer rim. It is rumored to be shielded by ancient energies, if it still exists." Kael felt a flicker of hope, a safe haven, a chance for Seraphina to truly be free. "Then that's where we go." He started powering up the ship, his resolve hardened. He wouldn't let her be taken. Not now, not after everything. The journey to the outer rim was long and fraught with peril. Kael relied on Seraphina's uncanny intuition to navigate through uncharted sectors. She would sense subtle shifts in hyperspace currents, hidden gravitational wells, and even the faint, almost imperceptible echoes of other vessels. Her senses were like a living map, far more accurate than any of his outdated navigation charts. They made several stops on desolate worlds to refuel and resupply. Kael, cautious after their close call, used disguises and fake IDs, always keeping one eye on the shadows. He used the chronium crystals he had salvaged from Xylos 4 to trade for supplies. They were immensely valuable. He sold them piece by piece, never too much at once, to avoid attracting unwanted attention. He even managed to upgrade some of the lucky scavenger's systems, making her a bit faster, a bit more agile. During these quiet moments, their bond deepened. Seraphina started to speak more, using her ethereal thought voice. She shared more fragments of her species' history. The Nocturnes were not just energy feeders. They were also keepers of galactic memory. They could connect with the echoes of past events, of civilizations long gone. This was why the Council feared them, not just for their draining touch, but for their ability to uncover buried truths. She had witnessed the rise and fall of empires. She had seen the cycle of greed and fear play out countless times. This gave her a detached wisdom, but also a profound melancholy. She had seen too much loneliness. Kael, in turn, found himself sharing more intimately about his life before Gorok's betrayal. He talked about his dream of building a small, honest trading empire. He talked about his family, a distant memory of a childhood spent on a farming world. He spoke of the quiet pride he felt in making an honest living before it was all shattered. He told her about the simple joy of flying through the stars, of seeing new worlds. Seraphina listened, absorbing his stories like light. She seemed to draw strength from his straightforward human emotions. From his anger, his sorrow, his quiet hope. She saw the resilience in his spirit. One day, while they were drifting silently through a nebula, avoiding a busy trade lane, Kael was working on the ship's comms system. It was crackling, refusing to hold a stable signal. He swore under his breath. Seraphina, who had been watching him with a gentle curiosity, extended a hand. A soft, warm energy flowed from her fingertips. The comms system hummed. The crackling stopped. The signal indicator solidified. "You fixed it," Kael said, staring at the screen. He hadn't seen her touch anything. "I merely nudged the energy pathways," she replied, a faint, almost shy smile on her lips. "Your technology is a fascinating network of intricate currents." Kael realized she could sense and manipulate energy in ways he couldn't comprehend. Not just life force, but electrical currents, mechanical vibrations. This opened up a whole new world of possibilities. It also highlighted how utterly powerful and therefore feared her kind could be. He thought about the Council again. They didn't just want to control her. They wanted to understand her, to dissect her, to replicate her. He felt a surge of protective anger. He wouldn't let them. Weeks turned into months. They passed through countless star systems. Some were bustling, filled with alien species of every shape and size. Others were desolate, barren rocks orbiting dying stars. Kael, with Seraphina's subtle guidance, navigated them all. The lucky scavenger became their home, a small bubble of safety in a hostile galaxy. Kael started to notice subtle changes in Seraphina. She seemed less withdrawn. Her crimson eyes, while still intense, held a new softness. She would sometimes touch his arm, a feather-like contact that sent a strange warmth through him. She would hum a soft, wordless melody that echoed in his mind, not a draining hum, but a soothing one. He found himself looking forward to their quiet evenings, to her ancient stories, to the unexpected moments of shared laughter when he would clumsily trip over a loose floor panel or burn their dinner rations. He even started to feel her presence, not just as a distinct individual, but as a subtle hum within his own being. He could anticipate her needs, her moods. It was a strange, deep connection. One evening, as Kael was checking the ship's fuel cells, a faint, garbled signal came through the comms. It was an old military frequency, one he hadn't heard in years. It was a distress call. "This is Captain Joris, freighter Star Wanderer," a crackling voice said. "We're under attack, piracy, engines crippled, location." The signal cut out. Kael felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had heard too many of those. Most were decoys, traps, but this one felt different. "It is real," Seraphina's voice echoed in his mind. She was beside him, her eyes fixed on the blank comms screen. "They are in great fear and pain." Kael looked at the star map. The distress signal's last known location was a day's jump away from their current position. It would put them off course. It would expose them. He remembered his own desperation after Gorok's betrayal. The feeling of being adrift, helpless. "We have to help them," he said, his voice firm. Seraphina simply nodded, her expression unreadable. She understood. This was humanity's strength, its empathy, its willingness to put itself at risk for strangers. Kael changed their course. They arrived at the distress signal's coordinates to find a grim scene. The Star Wanderer was adrift, its hull scorched, its engines spewing smoke. Two smaller, heavily armed pirate vessels were circling it, their weapons hot. Kael felt his heart pound. This was not a simple rescue. This was a battle. "I can't take on two pirate ships," Kael muttered, his hand hovering over the lucky scavenger's meager weapon controls. His ship was a cargo hauler, not a warship. "You will not be alone," Seraphina's voice resonated in his mind. "I will aid you." Kael looked at her. Her eyes glowed with an intensity he hadn't seen before. A faint, almost imperceptible crimson aura shimmered around her. "How?" Kael asked. "Can you drain their ships?" Seraphina's lips twitched. "No, not their physical essence, but I can touch their minds, their fear, their greed." Kael had an idea, a risky human idea. "They'll be boarding the freighter soon. They'll want cargo, hostages. We can disable one of their ships, create a diversion." He set the lucky scavenger on an intercept course. He opened a channel to the Star Wanderer, broadcasting on a low, scramble frequency. "Star Wanderer, this is the lucky scavenger. Don't respond. We're here to help. Get ready to activate your distress beacon on my mark." Kael flew the lucky scavenger low and fast. He aimed for the more damaged of the two pirate ships. He fired his ship's only weapon, a repurposed mining laser. It was weak but precise. The laser hit the pirate ship's dorsal antenna array. Sparks flew. The pirate ship's shields flickered. It wasn't a killing blow, but it got their attention. Both pirate ships turned their weapons on the lucky scavenger. Laser fire hammered their shields. Kael Dove weaved and spun, pushing his ship to its absolute limits. "Now!" Kael shouted into the comms. The Star Wanderer's distress beacon flared to life, a blinding pulse of light and energy that screamed across the system. It was designed to attract attention. Pirate ships hated attention. "They will not like that," Seraphina mused. "They will be agitated." This was Kael's opening. "Seraphina now!" As the pirates diverted some of their fire to the newly activated beacon, Seraphina acted. Kael felt a surge of energy within the cockpit, not draining, empowering. It was as if his own senses were heightened. He saw the pirate ship's energy conduits, its crew's nervous chatter. He saw, through Seraphina's borrowed vision, the greed and panic in the pirates' minds. Seraphina unleashed a wave of something invisible. Kael couldn't see it, but he felt it. A discordant hum, a wave of pure, unsettling despair that washed over the pirate ships. On his external sensors, he saw the pirate ships falter. Their firing became erratic. One of them spun wildly, losing control. Kael pressed his attack, firing his mining laser repeatedly at the spiraling ship. Its shield matrix shattered. Smoke poured from its engines. The other pirate ship, seeing its companion crippled, hesitated. Kael pushed the lucky scavenger right up to its bow, daring it. He watched as the pirate crew inside the cockpit, through Seraphina's extended senses, began to argue. Panic was setting in. Their captain, a bulky, scarred brute, was screaming. The ship's weapons powered down. It turned and fled, jumping to hyperspace. The battle was over. Kael brought the lucky scavenger alongside the Star Wanderer. He opened a comms channel. "Star Wanderer, this is Kael. Are you all right?" A weary voice responded. "Barely, thanks to you. We thought we were done for." Kael helped them make emergency repairs. He shared his remaining medical supplies. He gave them a course to the nearest safe port. He watched as the Star Wanderer limped away, a tiny speck against the vastness of space. He turned to Seraphina. She looked tired, but a faint, satisfied light gleamed in her crimson eyes. "That was exhilarating," she said, a hint of something like amusement in her voice. "They tasted very much of fear," Kael smiled. "That's humanity's strength, Seraphina, not just fighting but helping. And sometimes knowing how to make someone else's day a little worse." He had helped others. He had faced down his own fears. He had done something good. The emptiness within him had receded, replaced by a quiet sense of purpose. And beside him, Seraphina, the feared Blood Mistress, looked less like a monster and more like a friend. A very powerful, very unusual friend. Their act of heroism, however, did not go unnoticed. The Star Wanderer's distress beacon had been loud. Very loud. It had alerted local system authorities, and the fleeing pirate ship had surely reported their encounter. News of a rogue human pilot with an unknown, powerful ally spread like wildfire through the underworld, and more dangerously, through the Galactic Council's intelligence networks. The bounty on Kael's head, previously negligible, spiked. The Council, still hunting Seraphina, now had a clearer trail. They knew she was with a human. This made their hunt even more aggressive. Kael and Seraphina were now galactic fugitives of the highest order. The pressure was immense. They had to be even more cautious, even more isolated. They spent more time drifting in deep space, charting routes through nebulae and asteroid fields that no one else dared to traverse. Seraphina became an invaluable co-pilot. Her ability to sense minute changes in space, to navigate by feeling the cosmic currents, was extraordinary. She could detect anomalies that his sensors missed. She could predict distant stellar flares that would have crippled his ship. She was more than just a passenger. She was his guide, his second pair of eyes, his intuition. During one of their long, silent stretches, Kael began to feel the strain. The constant vigilance, the lack of human contact, the endless isolation. He started talking to himself more, muttering about ship repairs, about old memories. Seraphina watched him. She could feel his exhaustion, his underlying human need for connection beyond just her. One cycle, as Kael was calibrating the ship's ancient comm system, trying to pick up any news from inhabited space, he heard a faint, melodic sound. It wasn't Seraphina's hum. It was distinct, A series of musical notes rising and falling, he looked at Seraphina. She was humming softly a tune that somehow felt ancient and comforting. "What is that?" Kael asked, surprised. "A memory," Seraphina replied, her eyes distant. "A lullaby from my people, from a time when we were not hunted. It is a song of peace, of shared warmth." Kael felt a strange ache in his chest. He listened to the wordless melody. It spoke of deep understanding, of quiet joy. It spoke of a world he had never known. A world where beings like Seraphina could simply exist without fear. "It's beautiful," Kael said, his voice rough. Seraphina paused her humming. "You feel it, the intention behind the notes. Humans, you are very open to such things." Kael realized she wasn't just sharing a tune. She was sharing a piece of her soul, a glimpse into the true nature of her species. They were not just energy-draining beings. They were also sensitive, artistic, deeply connected to the universe's subtle energies, and they had been annihilated. He felt a deep, fierce anger at the Council, at their ignorance, at their fear-driven destruction. He promised himself then and there that he would protect Seraphina no matter the cost. He would find her a safe haven. He would give her peace. They finally approached the coordinates Seraphina had given him. The old place, the ancestral home of the Nocturnes. It was not a planet, but a deep space anomaly. A swirling nebula of vibrant colors and strange, glittering dust, unlike anything Kael had ever seen. It was cloaked by gravitational distortions and energy fields that made his sensors go wild. "This is it," Seraphina's thought voice resonated, a rare note of hope in her ancient tone. "The Veil of Whispers. It is said to be protected by the very echoes of my ancestors." Kael piloted the lucky scavenger cautiously into the swirling mists. His ship protested, groaning under the strange energies. The light outside the viewport shifted, painting the cockpit in hues of amethyst and emerald. "My sensors are useless," Kael said, his voice tight. "I can't see anything." "Trust me," Seraphina whispered. She extended her hand, palm up. A faint crimson light pulsed from her fingertips. It spread, not outwards, but inwards, enveloping them both in a warm, gentle glow. Kael felt his senses expand. He could see the energy pathways within the nebula, the currents and eddies of cosmic dust. He could feel the gravitational ripples. He was connected to Seraphina. He was seeing through her eyes, feeling through her awareness. It was overwhelming, but also strangely calming. He navigated by pure intuition, guided by Seraphina's shared perception. They weaved through impossible tight spaces, avoiding invisible energy barriers that would have shredded their ship. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged into a vast, hidden chamber within the nebula. It was an ethereal void. Millions of shimmering lights like tiny stars pulsed around them, but these were not stars. They were something else. "What are they?" Kael breathed, awestruck. "The echoes," Seraphina replied, her voice filled with reverence. "The concentrated life essence of my ancestors, their memories, their knowledge. Here they found peace." Floating amidst the shimmering echoes was a structure. It was not a ship nor a planet. It was an organic, living construct, massive and ancient, made of something like crystalline bone and pulsing light. It resembled a gigantic, sleeping flower, its petals unfolding in slow motion. "The heart of the Nocturnes," Seraphina explained. "The last sanctuary, it is protected by their collective essence." Kael felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. He had never imagined such a place. It was sacred. It was beautiful. He had finally brought her home, but their peace was short-lived. A sudden blip appeared on Kael's emergency proximity sensor. A single, distinct energy signature. A Galactic Council warship. It was small, stealth-configured, and incredibly fast. It had somehow managed to pierce the veil of whispers. "How?" Kael whispered, his blood running cold. "No one should be able to get through." Seraphina's eyes hardened. "A tracker, a subtle one. They must have placed it on the Star Wanderer, or on you when you made contact with those pirates." Kael cursed. He had been so careful, but the Council was relentless. They had tracked them through every trick, every hidden path. They wouldn't stop until they had Seraphina. The Council warship broadcasted a hail. It was loud, authoritative. "This is Commander Valerius of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet. You are harboring a Class A biohazard. Surrender the Nocturne and your lives will be spared." Kael felt a surge of adrenaline. They had found them, here, at her home. He wouldn't surrender her, not now, not ever. He looked at Seraphina. Her face was calm, but her eyes held a deep, ancient sorrow. "They will not stop," she said. "They will destroy this place if I do not comply." Kael gripped the controls. "Then we fight them, we don't surrender." He would protect her. He would protect this place. It was his purpose now. Kael's mind raced. One small warship against the lucky scavenger, a cargo hauler. It was suicide, but he had Seraphina. And he had a plan, a very human plan. "Commander Valerius," Kael broadcasted back, his voice steady. "You have no authority here. This is an ancient sanctuary. You violate galactic peace by entering this space." A sneer filled the comms. "Peace? You harbor a monster, human. One that threatens the stability of 100 systems. Step aside." Kael ignored him. He looked at Seraphina. "Can you feel their ship systems, their power core?" Seraphina closed her eyes. "Yes, a tightly wound knot of energy, powerful. Driven by fear." Kael nodded. "Good, I need you to create a diversion, a big one, something that will make them think their ship is about to explode." Seraphina opened her eyes. A faint smile touched her lips. "An illusion, yes. I can resonate with their fears, amplify them." Kael maneuvered the lucky scavenger. He wasn't trying to fight. He was trying to distract. He flew directly at the Council warship, firing his mining lasers in quick, erratic bursts. The lasers did nothing to the warship's reinforced shields, but they got the commander's attention. "Foolish human, you court death," Valerius bellowed. As the warship returned fire, Seraphina acted. Kael felt a deep, resonating hum spread from her. It was stronger than anything he had felt before. It wasn't draining. It was a wave of pure, concentrated energy. He watched as the Council warship's internal systems went haywire. Alarms blared from its comms, lights flickered. Explosions, small but convincing, erupted on its internal monitors. The ship's shields rippled violently. "What in the void is happening?" Valerius screamed. "Damage report. Shields are fluctuating, power core critical." The Council crew was in a panic. Kael could sense their fear amplified by Seraphina. They believed their ship was tearing itself apart. This was the human element, the unexpected. The psychological attack. While Valerius and his crew were distracted, Kael put his plan into action. He flew the lucky scavenger straight towards the heart of the Nocturnes. The massive, organic construct pulsed with soft light. "Seraphina," Kael said, "I need you to open a channel to the heart, a secure one, a physical connection." Seraphina understood. She extended a hand towards the giant structure. A thin, crimson thread of light shot out from her fingers, connecting with the heart. The massive, flower-like structure pulsed brighter. Kael knew it was risky, but it was their only chance. He piloted the lucky scavenger to the deepest point of the heart. He powered down his ship's engines, letting it drift. "What are you doing, human?" Valerius yelled, his voice laced with confusion and rage. "You are trapped," Kael smiled. "Not trapped, Commander, protected." He activated his ship's long-range comms. He sent a single, simple message, not to Valerius but to the Galactic Council's Central Intelligence Network. He broadcasted it on every frequency. "This is Kael. I am transmitting a direct data feed from the heart of the Nocturnes. You will see what you have hunted. You will see what you have destroyed." He knew the Council had surveillance. He knew they monitored everything. He gambled on their innate curiosity, their desire for information. Seraphina was still connected to the heart, and through Seraphina, Kael was able to access the heart's vast, ancient memory banks. He transmitted images, not just abstract energy readings, but holographic projections, visuals of ancient Nocturne cities, their art, their culture, their peaceful interactions with other species. Memories of galactic history, witnessed and recorded by the Nocturnes. The true story of their species, not the fear-mongering version. The Council warship systems began to calm. Valerius, his face pale, stared at his monitors. The illusion of his ship's destruction had faded, but a new image filled his main screen. Images of the Nocturnes, of Seraphina's people, not as monsters, as wise, gentle custodians of galactic knowledge. A gasp escaped Valerius's lips. He saw the truth, the long history of fear and misunderstanding. He saw what his council had done, what he had almost done. Kael watched Valerius's face. The commander's fear had been replaced by shock, by doubt, by a dawning horror. This was the true power of humanity. Not just the ability to fight, but the ability to reveal, to challenge perceptions, to force understanding. Seraphina, still connected to the heart, transmitted one last image. It was of a young Nocturne playing in a field of shimmering light. A tiny, fragile thing, a child. It was the antithesis of the monster they had been warned about. Valerius stared at the image. His hand, which had been reaching for the weapon controls, slowly dropped. "Cease fire," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Cease fire immediately." The silence that followed Valerius's command was deafening. The only sounds were the soft hum of the lucky scavenger's dormant systems and the gentle, ancient pulsing of the heart of the Nocturnes. Kael watched Commander Valerius's face on the main screen. The commander's expression shifted from shock to a grim understanding. His eyes were wide, haunted by the images he had just seen. The truth of the Nocturnes, transmitted directly from their ancestral memory, had shattered the Council's carefully constructed narrative of fear and danger. Kael knew this wasn't an instant victory. The Galactic Council was a massive, bureaucratic entity, slow to change. But he had planted a seed of doubt. He had forced them to see, and that was a start. Valerius finally spoke, his voice quiet, almost defeated. What have you done?" Kael replied, his voice calm and firm. "I have shown you the truth, Commander. For too long your council has acted on fear. You have destroyed a peaceful, ancient people out of ignorance." Seraphina, still connected to the heart, slowly detached herself. The crimson thread of light retracted. She looked at Kael, her crimson eyes filled with a profound gratitude. Her thought voice was strong, clear, resonating with newfound hope. "They will not forget this, Kael. The echoes, they have reached beyond this veil." Kael nodded. He understood. This was humanity's unexpected impact. Not through brute force, but through cunning, empathy, and the willingness to expose uncomfortable truths. He had used the Council's own technology against them, forcing them to confront their prejudices. Commander Valerius remained silent for a long moment. Then, with a deep sigh, he activated his ship's comms, not to Kael, but to his own fleet. "All units, stand down. Reconnaissance mission complete. Prepare for hyperspace jump. Return to base." He cut the connection before Kael could say anything more. The Council warship, silent and defeated, turned away from the veil of whispers. Its engines flared. It jumped to hyperspace, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Kael felt a wave of relief wash over him. They were safe. For now. He looked at Seraphina. She was gazing at the heart of the Nocturnes, her eyes shimmering with a quiet joy. "This place is safe," she whispered, her voice resonating in Kael's mind. "For the first time in millennia, I am home." Kael smiled. He had done it. He had found her a sanctuary, but he knew their journey wasn't truly over. The Galactic Council would be reeling. There would be investigations, backlash, but now they had the truth, and Seraphina had a home. Kael spent the next few months living within the veil of whispers in the heart of the Nocturne sanctuary. The lucky scavenger was docked safely within the ancient living structure. He continued to study the chronium crystals he had collected. He found their energies resonated strangely with the heart of the Nocturnes. Perhaps there was a deeper connection, an ancient link he hadn't yet understood. He dedicated himself to learning from Seraphina. She taught him to perceive the subtle energies of the universe, to feel the vibrations of distant stars, to sense the presence of life forms not just through instruments, but through his very being. He still couldn't feed like her, but his senses sharpened. He could anticipate atmospheric changes before his sensors, feel subtle gravitational shifts, and even pick up the emotional echoes of the ancient Nocturnes stored within the heart. He learned to meditate, to quiet his own chaotic human mind, and to listen to the gentle hum of the cosmos. Seraphina, in turn, blossomed. Surrounded by the echoes of her ancestors, by the quiet peace of her true home, she shed some of her ancient sorrow. She laughed more easily, a soft, melodic sound that filled Kael's mind with warmth. She explored the vast, luminous chambers of the heart, connecting with the collective memories, rediscovering the forgotten knowledge of her people. She spoke of the Nocturnes' true purpose, not just as energy feeders, but as galactic historians, guardians of forgotten truths. Their ability to draw on life force was a byproduct of their deeper connection to the universal stream of consciousness. They could access the very fabric of existence, learning from its memories. Kael realized the Galactic Council's fear was built on a monumental misunderstanding. The Nocturnes were not a threat. They were a library, a living, breathing archive of the universe. One day, while Kael was repairing a minor fault in the Lucky Scavenger's auxiliary power conduit, Seraphina appeared beside him. Her eyes were brighter than usual. Her thought voice was filled with a sense of wonder. "Kael," she said, "I have found something, a memory, hidden deep within the heart. It speaks of a great event, of a time before the council, before the fear." Kael put down his tools. "What kind of event?" Seraphina transmitted images directly into his mind. They were startlingly vivid. A vast, desolate battlefield stretching across light years. Two ancient, powerful species locked in a cataclysmic war that threatened to tear the galaxy apart. And then a third force, not the Nocturnes, another species, one that Kael recognized, humans. "Humans?" Kael asked, surprised. "We were part of an ancient galactic war," Seraphina's image stream continued. It showed primitive human vessels, small and fragile, but piloted with a desperate cunning. They weren't fighting for one side or the other. They were fighting to stop the war. They used unconventional tactics. They disrupted supply lines. They sabotaged massive superweapons. They deployed small, explosive charges in precise locations to create chain reactions that crippled entire fleets, but without causing massive casualties. They were too few to win outright, but they were too unpredictable to ignore. And then the most astonishing image appeared. A human figure, small, unassuming, standing between the two warring fleets, not with a weapon but with a strange, pulsating device. The device emitted a powerful, focused wave. It didn't destroy, it neutralized. It temporarily disabled all weapons, all engines. It created a field of absolute stillness. "The pacifier," Seraphina's voice resonated with awe. "A device of profound peace. Created by your ancestors, Kael, it forced an armistice. It gave the warring factions time to consider their actions, to stop the cycle of destruction." Kael was stunned. His ancestors. Simple, resourceful humans had once stopped a galactic war. This was not in any of the Council's history archives. No wonder they kept it secret. It defied their narrative of humanity as a young, impetuous species. It showed a power they couldn't control, a wisdom they couldn't understand. Seraphina showed him the aftermath. The two warring species, disarmed and bewildered, forced to talk. The humans, quiet and unassuming, simply observed. They didn't claim victory, they didn't demand tribute. They simply stepped back, their mission accomplished. Then the memory ended. "They called it the Great Silence," Seraphina concluded. The war ended, but the device was lost. And the memory of humanity's role was suppressed by the very factions who gained peace from it. They feared humanity's ingenuity, their quiet, unexpected power. Kael felt a swell of pride and a profound understanding. The HFY. Humanity's ability to innovate, to adapt, to surprise. To find peace where others found only war. And to do it not for glory, but for survival, for a chance at a better future. It made him think. If his ancestors could do that, what else could humanity achieve? What else had been suppressed? Their quiet existence in the veil of whispers was eventually broken. A faint, persistent signal began to ping on Kael's long-range comms. It wasn't a council warship. It was a civilian vessel, a small, battered freighter. Kael picked up the transmission. It was weak, distorted. "This is Captain Joris, Star Wanderer," the voice crackled. The same Captain Kael had saved months ago. "We're in trouble, deep trouble. The council, they're taking away our licenses, calling us traitors for speaking up about you. About the truth, we're stranded. No port will take us." Kael felt a surge of anger. The council was retaliating. They couldn't erase the truth, but they could punish those who dared to spread it. He looked at Seraphina. Her eyes held a knowing sadness. "They are afraid," she thought whispered. "Afraid of the truth. Afraid of the power of your message." Kael knew what he had to do. He couldn't let innocent people suffer. He had helped the Star Wanderer once. He would do it again, but this time he wouldn't just rescue them. He would fight back. "We have to help them," Kael said, his voice firm. "But we can't just run and hide. We have to show the council that their fear tactics won't work." Seraphina looked at him, a flicker of something new in her eyes. Not just hope, but determination. "How, Kael? They are a vast machine." Kael thought about the Great Silence, about the pacifier, about humanity's unexpected impact. "We use their own system against them," Kael said. "We bring the truth to light on a galactic scale. We show them the memory of the Nocturnes, and we show them the memory of the Great Silence. We prove to the galaxy that fear is a choice, not a necessity." He had a risky plan, a daring plan. It would involve leaving the sanctuary. It would involve putting themselves in direct danger. But it was the only way to truly change things. Kael began preparing the lucky scavenger for departure. He reinforced the shields, calibrated the cloaking device, and loaded every bit of chronium crystal he could. He knew this was it. The final confrontation, not with weapons but with truth. Kael and Seraphina emerged from the Veil of Whispers. The lucky scavenger, now subtly enhanced by Seraphina's subtle energy manipulations, felt faster, stronger. They set a course for the nearest major trade hub, the bustling, multi-species station known as the Crossroads. It was a hub of commerce, information, and most importantly, a place where hundreds of species mingled, free from direct council oversight. It was where rumors spread and where truths could find fertile ground. As they approached the crossroads, Kael scanned for Captain Joris's Star Wanderer. He found it, adrift on the outskirts of the station's docking lanes, clearly outcast. Kael hailed Joris. "Captain Joris, this is Kael. We're here. We'll get you inside." Joris's voice was filled with disbelief, then relief. "Kael, you actually came, but how? They'll jump you," Kael smiled. "Let them try." He used the lucky scavenger's enhanced cloaking device, weaving through the crowded approach lanes like a ghost. He activated a subtle energy pulse, directed by Seraphina, that temporarily scrambled the station's short-range scanners. They slipped into a deserted maintenance bay, docking without a hitch. Joris and his crew, a motley collection of species, greeted Kael with wary gratitude. They were starving, their ship low on fuel. "The Council has blacklisted us," Joris explained, his voice grim. "No one will trade with us. No one will let us dock. They said we were spreading dangerous misinformation about the Nocturne." Kael nodded. "I know. That ends now?" He looked at Seraphina. She stood silently beside him, her crimson eyes scanning the bustling station through the maintenance bay's large window. She could feel the pulse of so many different life forms, the cacophony of their emotions. Fear, hope, greed, joy. Kael had a plan that would expose the Council's lies on a grand scale. He had spent weeks in the Veil of Whispers, working with Seraphina to refine the data from the heart of the Nocturnes. He had extracted specific memories, the true history of the Nocturnes, and most importantly, the memory of the Great Silence. The moment humans, his ancestors, had stopped a galactic war. He knew the Council had an embassy on the Crossroads, a massive, heavily guarded structure that housed their propaganda network. That was his target. He and Seraphina would infiltrate it. They would broadcast the truth to the entire station. And from there, it would spread like wildfire. This was not a fight with lasers and explosions. This was a fight for hearts and minds. Kael and Seraphina moved through the bustling corridors of the Crossroads. Kael wore a simple maintenance uniform, his face obscured by a service hood. Seraphina walked beside him, her ethereal beauty hidden by a long, dark cloak.